It's widely accepted that SEGA Rally Championship is the best racing game on the SEGA Saturn. It featured very impressive gameplay and was a graphically rich and smooth game. What few realize is that Wipeout, that very early PlayStation 1 hit, which was ported to the Saturn in 1996, is right up there as one of the system's best racers. Now, before jumping into the game itself, there is a little history I'd like to cover first. Wipeout was originally developed for the PlayStation by Psygnosis in 1995, and it was such a hit that Sony actually purchased the company that same year. Through a legal loophole, the game was able to be released on the Saturn the following year, albeit with a completely new soundtrack. The original soundtrack featured techno and electronica hits from artists such as the Chemical Brothers, Left Field, Orbital, The Prodigy, and more. Since Sony owned the licensing rights to most of the music, new tracks were added to the Saturn version. Okay, enough with a history lesson, let's jump on into the game. Wipeout can best be summed up as such. It's a racing game where you race on 6 tracks located in a futuristic version of Earth. If you're good enough and master all 6 tracks on the hardest difficulty, you can unlock the 7th and final track, which happens to be located on Mars. There are 2 core difficulty settings which are broken up into the Venom or Beginner class and Rapier or Expert class. There are 4 different racing teams you can join, each having 2 different crafts. That's right, the vehicles here aren't your typical cars. No, they're anti-gravity racing vehicles. Each craft is unique, with some being better at turning and overall handling, and others still better suited for speed and acceleration. The track design is utterly superb, especially for such an early 3D racer. Some tracks are wide and feature massive jumps, whereas others twist and turn all over the place and are much more narrow, making combat essential. Your goal in each track is to come in first place, thereby defeating all 7 of your AI-controlled opponents. As you race on the different tracks, you'll notice 2 different pads on the track. One is for a random weapon, and the other is a speed boost. Weapons include things like a homing rocket, shield, speed boost, and more. The game strikes a really nice balance between hardcore racing and action. The controls are tight and responsive, even though the game itself is floaty. Some courses will test you to master the air brakes because failure to do so will result in you constantly slamming into the walls of the track, and that zaps your energy quite quickly. You'll see me do that quite a lot in certain portions of this video because certain tracks are extremely challenging. But once you get the hang of the controls though, you'll be up there with the best of them on the podium. Graphically, the Saturn version doesn't have all the bells and whistles that the PS1 version had. There are no transparencies, which is extremely evident when you see the shield's power-up being used, and most of the lighting effects you see here were achieved through trickery and not genuine lighting effects. Resolution has also been slightly decreased, however the textures look much more refined. The frame rate is also fairly consistent, which is quite nice. I really enjoyed that. I also found the Saturn version to be quite a bit faster than the PlayStation original, and as such is a slightly more exciting experience because of that. Sounds like a real winner, wouldn't you say? I know I sure love it, but there's one glaring omission that makes the PlayStation version the superior version, and that is that this version lacks a multiplayer mode. That's right. Without being able to challenge a friend, the game eventually gets repetitive. There's only so much racing against the AI you can do before you completely master both leagues and eventually the game as a whole. With a multiplayer option, the action never gets old. That said, this Saturn port is still a very fun game to play, and like I said at the beginning of the review, it remains one of the very best racers on the SEGA Saturn. The game typically sells for around $20 and under, so if you're interested, you can easily snatch this one up. It comes highly recommended.